just be alone forever? So this train of thought, it kind of is, it encompasses a lot of things, but I'm kind of at an age where I find myself taking things a lot more seriously, and thinking a lot about what I want out of my life in terms of like everything pretty much. Like I'm thinking a lot about what I want to pursue professionally, personally, and like what I want out of my relationships and things like that. And this train of thought inevitably leads me to this idea of marriage, having kids. When I find myself kind of landing on that aspect of it, I feel a little bit at a loss because I've found like in my 20s as a teenager, whenever my whole life pretty much, relationships have never been something that I've ever prioritized in the same way that like I prioritized school when I was still a student, the way I prioritize professional development where it makes sense for me. Relationships, I've never put that level of intention into it. And I find myself wondering, like, is there ever going to be a moment where it just kind of clicks in my brain where I want to do that, where I want to intentionally pursue a relationship, intentionally pursue these things? And today, the book I want to talk about, it kind of grapples with that question in a way. When I was reading this book, really when I was kind of trying to piece together my thoughts about it so I can talk about it, I landed on this question of, is marriage natural? Is the desire for marriage, is that like a natural, innate thing? And that's kind of a question that I carried with me throughout my book, or not throughout my book, throughout the book as I read it and as I kind of reread it and kind of piece things together. So I guess I kind of want to try to tackle that. So the book that I want to talk about today is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. And this book is about many things, primarily about our protagonist, Janie, and her life and kind of her search in life for love and to try to kind of fulfill this need for more that she has. And that is very vague, and it's not really a good way to describe the book. But I think I can bring it together in a way that makes sense. Just gotta stick with me. So before I get into the plot and get into kind of my analysis and thoughts about it, I want to first read a quote from the book that I think is going to be very important, and it's something that I'm going to revisit. I'm not going to talk about it initially, but I'm definitely going to revisit it. So just like listen to this and kind of keep it with you. This comes from the very first page, the very first two paragraphs of the book. If that's any indication of kind of how important it is. So it says, ships at a distance have every man's wish on board. For some, they come in with the tide. For others, they sail forever on the horizon, never out of sight, never landing until the watcher turns his eyes away in resignation, his dreams mocked to death by time. That is the life of men. Now, women forget all those things they don't want to remember and remember everything they don't want to forget. The dream is the truth. Then they act and do things accordingly. As a girl, Janie very much romanticizes marriage. And it's not necessarily marriage in the traditional sense, in the way that like we as human, as adults, engage in it. She thinks of marriage more of this kind of very natural union, and this sort of interest and kind of fixation on marriage, it starts for her as she's laying underneath this pear tree in her grandmother's backyard. And as she's laying there, she's just kind of watching all of the like happenings around her with the bees and the leaves and pollination and how they're interacting with each other. And she's kind of enraptured by how all of these kind of beings in nature interact with each other so harmoniously and As she's laying there, she describes what she is seeing as this kind of marriage. And so, she saw a dust-bearing bee sink into the sanctum of a bloom. The thousand sister calyxes arched to meet the love embrace, and the ecstatic shiver of the tree, from root to the tiniest branch, creaming in every blossom and frothing with delight. So this was a marriage. She had been summoned to behold a revelation. In conjunction with that, Janie has this sort of natural zest for life where she wants more from her life, more than what she can see as she sits in her grandmother's yard. To her, this idea of sort of having a very fulfilled life and marriage, they're very much kind of, they are very, I guess, one and the same. Like, they're very much connected to her, and she sees marriage as a way to sort of chase this horizon, to reach her own horizon. And if we go back to the quote that I mentioned I mentioned at the beginning, for Janie, marriage as this very beautiful and natural thing, it is something that, like, she carries that truth with her throughout her entire life. Throughout she has 3 marriages, and they're all vastly different in how they affect her and how they affect her view of marriage. But in kind of the deepest part of her, she carries this truth, and she carries this dream of having this, like, wonderful and beautiful, naturally harmonious marriage. Like, she carries it with her, and to her, that is always going to be an essential truth that, I mean, that she is going to chase, that she is going to find, that she's going to be able to kind of revel in for herself, the way that the bees get to. Before she is actually into her marriage, the first sort of I guess way that she kind of engages with this feeling that she has, the kind of the first time that she chases it, is with this boy Johnny Taylor, in who she kisses over the fence in her grandmother's yard. And when I read that, it wasn't really about Johnny. It wasn't really about kissing him. It wasn't about trying to be fast. It wasn't about any of that. It was trying to kind of chase this curiosity that she has, and to kind of just experience and just know more. And even in the book, when she's kind of talking about Johnny, it's very much, the way that she describes him is very shrouded in all of this beautiful natural imagery. So it's like he's kind of like means to an end for her at that point. It's nothing like nefarious or anything like that. It's just she has this natural curiosity, and I mean, it's to her, it's very natural to chase that curiosity and maybe pursue it with this boy, because maybe he can kind of bring her to this thing that she is searching for. Even though at this point she's about, I don't know, 12, 13. Like, she's a girl, so she's not really, this idea isn't as fully fleshed out as it becomes, like, more throughout the novel and as she gets older. But it's kind of very much the beginning of that, the beginning of, like, trying to understand that feeling that she's having, and kind of chase this thing that she wants. I will say, for a time, Janie does find this thing that she's looking for. She finds this beautiful and wonderful marriage. She finds this very fulfilling and kind of love-filled and adventure-filled life. She does get to experience all of these things, and that, for a time, I'll just leave it at that till we get to that point. But it does very much start with Johnny. It starts with her laying under this pear tree. It starts with just those very naive feelings that she has as she's laying there, and as she's watching this, and as she's seeing this beautiful thing, this beautiful thing that life can be. It all starts there in her grandmother's yard. In order to kind of try to answer my initial question that I posed of, is marriage natural? Is the desire for marriage natural? I thought a good way to kind of go through it would just to be would be to just go through her marriages, because they all, in their own way, they teach us something about marriage. All of these experiences, they culminate into how she is leaves how she leaves us kind of settled in a way, and they all, you know, come, like, it all brings us to that natural end. She doesn't die. She's still very much alive at the end of the book. So I guess I'll start with her first marriage to Logan Killix. She has no desire to marry this man, and it is something that she has to do because her grandmother's getting older, and she needs someone to take care of her. As a poor black girl with no parents, her being married off is just kind of the way that it simply was going to be. And when she's with this man, it is very much a loveless thing with him. And at this time, she's still fairly young. She's a teenager, so she still has a level of naivety to her. And so as she's with him, and he's kind of having her work in the farm, and very much is treating her like property. And she's kind of at this point where she still believes that, okay, I am married to this man, so I am going to love him. She still has this very just sort of, just, I guess, like a naive sort of perspective on it, because to her that is the truth. Like, marriage and nature and beauty, they're all intertwined. They're all this, like, kind of single entity, that everything just works in unity with each other. So of course, when you have marriage, you also have love. But when she's with him, that's just not the case. She's here because she has to be. She does these things because she has to. She doesn't really have a choice, and it kind of brings her to that first sort of, like, kind of existential sort of a conflict where she's kind of like, is it supposed to be this lonely? She says, did marriage end the cosmic loneliness of the unmated? Did marriage compel love like the sun the day? So as I said, she still is connecting marriage with this very the way that the sun rises and sets, and how that is just kind of a cosmic truth, I guess. But she's in this marriage where there is no love, so it's kind of like bringing her to this point where it's like, I am here. This is not right. This is not the way that marriage is supposed to be, because this is nothing about this is beautiful. It's bitter. It's decaying. It's this dirty, nasty thing. And it's not the marriage that she knows that is supposed to be hers. Very tragically, she's faced with this very real reality for someone of her station, as a poor black woman with not too many options, that marriage sometimes is something that is done out of obligation, out of as a means to an end, as something done out of need. And this is very much the first time she has to grapple with that. But I mean, she's as we learned at the very beginning of the book, her dream is the truth. So she's gonna go find the right man. Like, she's going to, and that's exactly what she thinks she's doing when she gets up and walks away with Joe Starks. And when it comes to her marriage with the Joe, if we're just comparing this man to the last man, you could argue that it is better. Whereas Logan was kind of treating her like a mule, as his servant in a way, Joe, he treats her more so like a trophy, because Joe is a man of very lofty ambition. He is quite wealthy, and he's able to walk into this community and build it from the ground up, all by his own design. And for him, having a wife like Janie, who is beautiful and admired by all of the men in the community, that is kind of his prize. She is his prize, and she is meant to be seen and not heard. Perfect model employee in their store, well, in his store. As they're together, she sort of resigns herself to just existing in his shadow, and there's no space for her to bloom, to grow, to kind of be her fullest self, because all of that energy, all of that nurturing has to be dedicated to Joe and everything that he wants to build, everything that he wants to accomplish. And they very much kind of get into this rhythm of that. Their relationship, it lasts up until Joe passes, and I'm very much simplifying this, and I'm leaving out a lot, and there was a lot to it towards the end of his life, where Ginny, she kind of reaches in and pulls that power out of herself, to kind of bring her back to her own reality, where she realizes, like, this is not right, this is not the way that it ends for her, this is not the way that it's going to be for her. She very much gets that power back, and kind of in the aftermath of his death, she's able to learn from this marriage, and refuses to go back into that. So she is a widow. She's the kind of owner of the store, has her own home, all these things, and all of the townspeople. Apologies, my camera died, so I had to take a brief intermission. So when I had a really good Earl Grey scone that's vegan from this coffee shop that's local to me. But anyways, that's not the point. So getting back to what I was talking about. So in the aftermath of Joe's death, Janie, she now has reclaimed her power. She now has wealth, and she has kind of the power of choice and like free will. So despite the fact that all of the townspeople are expecting her to remarry some man that they find acceptable, she refuses to do that. She refuses because now she has the control, she has the power, she has the wealth, she has the money. So she's just gonna vibe like that. That initially, that's kind of the vibe you get from her. She's just living here, and she's working at her store, and just doing things that she wants for the first time in pretty much her entire life. And that kind of brings us to her third husband. His name is Virgil Woods, better known as Tea Cake, which is the silliest nickname I've ever heard in my life, but it's also endearing, I suppose. So I feel like their marriage very much encapsulates everything that Janie has been looking for. So with him, she's able to fully be herself and fully have this love and this harmony and all of this beautiful natural thing that she was searching for. She has it with him. Of course, I'm vastly simplifying that, and I'm leaving out some of the hardship that she does experience with him. But I think if we kind of keep it in the context of the book, in the context of kind of the way that men were and were allowed to be, I think that she very much finds what she is looking for, despite his shortcomings as a person, as a man, as a partner. Their relationship, it also defies kind of expectations of her and of him, I guess. So he is young, he is poor, he is very prideful despite the fact that he is poor, and he kind of very much takes Ginny out of this very privileged sort of position that she was in with Joe, and he takes her out of that, and he has her with him in the Everglades working in fields, and she's very much happy to be there. I will note that, but it's very much their relationship very much goes against all the things that the people around them would say are like the natural way of things, the natural order of things in their community. Their relationship very much goes against all of that. But despite the fact that they're defying all these expectations, I think what they have together, the kind of all the feelings that are kind of encapsulated in that, it very much kind of mirrors in a way, it mirrors this revelation that Janie has as a young girl while she's laying under that pear tree, and that very just strong and ecstatic feeling that she has as she watches all these things happen. I think what they have together, it is kind of the closest you can get to that very magical childhood experience that she had. I would say that it almost feel like the way that they are together, it almost feels like it was natural for them to be together, natural for them to live out their lives together. And kind of fittingly, it is this natural disaster that they experience that kind of takes them apart. So while they're in the Everglades, there's this really, really bad storm that they get caught in. And although they survive the storm, Tea Cake, he does end up contracting rabies, and it ends like their love story very tragically ends with Janie having to end his life because he's kind of turned into his animal. He's no longer this man who she loves and who loves her deeply. He's just kind of he's been kind of taken over by this disease, and she has to end his life. And following that, and kind of following this whole court hearing and everything, which that was another just very emotional part of the book for me, which I won't get into it, but you should read the book so you can get all these things that I'm not talking about. But after she goes through that and she returns back to the town that Joe built and where they had their marital home, when she returns there, she comes back to her house and she's sitting at her vanity table. I don't remember if she's combing her hair or not, but she's kind of sitting here in this very contemplative state, and just kind of as she's sitting there and is kind of just taking in kind of everything that she's been through and kind of like bringing all of these experiences back to her, she just has this level of satisfaction. And as she's sitting here thinking about it, you also get this kind of response from the trees and the wind, and you can also feel Tea Cake's presence still there with her. She says, "Then Tea Cake came prancing around her where she was, and the song of the sigh flew out the window and lit in the top of the pine trees. Tea Cake, with the sun for a shawl. Of course, he wasn't dead. He could never be dead until she herself had finished feeling and thinking. The kiss of his memory made pictures of love and light against the wall. Here was peace. She pulled in her horizon like a great fishnet, pulled it from around the waist of the world and draped it over her shoulder. So much life in its meshes. She called in her soul to come and see." So, again, like, I could honestly go on and on and on about how just beautiful and almost poetic Zora Neale Hurston's prose is. And it's just like, when I read her work, I just find myself just reading it and rereading it just to kind of just to sit with it and to feel it. Even if she takes us through all these very tragic and difficult things, there's just still so much beauty in her writing. Even when Tea Cake is existing in this kind of living death, their marriage still brings her the satisfaction, and it brings her all of the beauty and the love and the life and everything that she's searching for, and it still satisfies her even if she no longer has this man. Because I think what they had together, it was natural. It is something deeper than kind of two people being in the flesh with one another. What they have very much encaptures this sort of beautiful thing that exists in nature, that exists for her to just kind of like relish in. And that's why he won't be gone until she is, because he's always going to be there with her. He's always going to be in the trees, in the sun. He's going to be right there, shining light right on her shoulders. And that very much is, I think it's that very much is everything that she's been searching for, and everything that everything that brings her the closest she can get back to that feeling that she felt and those very early days when she was laying there under the pear tree. And I mean that brings us to the end of the book. So I guess I gotta go back to go back to the initial question that I posed at the beginning. So is marriage natural? Is desiring marriage natural? If we're considering this as like the institution of marriage, no, I don't think the wanting to be married in that way is like a natural thing. And especially if we're thinking of keeping it in the context of the book, to Janie, marriage in her very real life, if we're taking away all of these desires and wants that she had as a person and just stick to what was necessary for her to do, no, marriage is not a natural thing. It's not something that she would naturally want. It was just something she had to do in order to survive. And I think, I mean, at the time, this is like early 20th century, in a poor community. And I think even like if we can still take that context and expand it in that century and expand it to now. That is something that a lot of women contend with. A lot of women are kind of enduring and surviving through, and it's something that like if it was up to them, no, they wouldn't get married, or at least they would maybe hold off on marriage. And I mean, I can bring it to myself. Like, I have the means to take care of myself. I have the means to, make a lot of the decisions in my life, and I'm not married because it didn't kind of parse out that way for me quite yet. Will it in the future? I don't know, but I'll always have the choice of whether or not I want to pursue that. And that's not the reality for a lot of women. And I think if we're thinking about how the institution of marriage has been kind of integrated into into how we are socialized, it's become something that we got duped into, and a lot of women are still getting duped into. And we see it like with like all the silly little videos of women on social media talking about their husbands like weaponized incompetence against them and not being able to take care of things when they're not around. Like, the way we are socialized, we are kind of trained to just like accept that because marriage is something that we're supposed to do. And even if somebody's college educated, has their own stuff going for them, they still might end up in a marriage that is unfulfilling in that way, simply because of how we are socialized as women. Is just that is just how it happens sometimes. And I would love to free all my sisters from this. I think if we're talking about the institution of marriage and what it means for a lot of women and what it means in terms of how we are socialized to think about it, no, it's not something that we innately want to participate in, because it often is not this beautiful, magical, harmonious thing for a lot of people. If we're talking about relationships and love and everything in a more kind of emotional way, I suppose, I think the desire for companionship, for having that just kind of deep intimacy with another person that you can often get from a romantic relationship, I think that desire very much is a natural and innate thing, and something that we're all gravitating towards in our own way. And I think it doesn't necessarily have to be in a romantic sense, because like for me, I don't date because I just never really had that pull, but I do find a lot of fulfillment in my platonic relationships and my family relationships, and I put a lot more energy into that, because I mean, having that intimacy, having that connection with other people, I think that is a very human, very natural thing, and something that is very enriching to your life when you do have it, and something that the lack of it is very, like, it can be very deeply felt, because it's just not the way we're wired. We're not meant to be alone all the time. We're not meant to, have to carry all of the weight of everything that we're dealing with. We're not meant to carry it all on our own. If we want to kind of bring it back to the book a little bit, I think for me, a lot of the like non-romantic um, intimacy that Janie and TK share, that was very resonant to me. So it's like things like them, like joking around with each other as they're playing. Was it chess or checkers? I don't remember. I think when they're playing checkers, when they go fishing together, and just do like we're doing like just like silly little things together. Um, I like a lot of that was very resonant to me because it's like you can still like have these connections with other people and like have this sort of like very fun just existence with each other without romantic relationships. You can have it with it, and I think having a romantic relationship is kind of it brings a different level to it as well. But I think like having that very like that kind of intimacy with one another in a non-physical way is very I think is very important regardless of like what kind of relationship you have there. I guess to like round this out and finish it out and bring it back to me, I guess. I don't know if I'll ever get married. I don't know. I think I'm it's something that I'm contemplating a lot now. Like my frontal lobe's fully developed. I'm about to hit my Saturn's return. You know, I'm just like gonna keep contemplating things and figuring out, you know, what's right for me, what kind of options I have in this life. I don't know, maybe I'll like move out the country or something. I do kind of believe in kind of the power of love, the power of relationships. I do think it can be like a very beautiful, wonderful thing when it is right for you. And I do kind of find a lot of value in the privilege that I have in being able to like be very discerning for that sort of like for that sort of thing, even like non-relationships, like even like having the ability to be very discerning with how I spend my time, who I spend my time with, just having that privilege, that is like something that's very important to me. But I don't know, maybe I'll get married, I don't know, maybe I'll work it out, maybe just maybe it will actually click in this way that like I've always thought it was going to. Or maybe it won't. And I'll just be here reading books. But I don't know. We'll see. But what I do know is that my dreams and the things that I feel are innate to me, I do feel very confident in kind of being able to continue to chase that and continue to kind of chase life and kind of get the most out of it that I can, and you know, get all the things out of it that I actually want. And yeah, so I don't know, marriage is there, it's always there, it's always a possibility. But you know, there's so much life to live, so much life to be lived. So you know, I'm gonna just keep chasing that, keep chasing the horizon, keep looking out to the water, and knowing that what I want is going to come to me. You know, trying to catch to the book here, but I'm kind of missing the mark. But I hope you understand what I'm saying. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got on Their Eyes Were Watching God. If you've read the book, what do you think of it? What do you think of Zora Neale Hurston's writing style? I'm so interested to know what other people think about that, because it's something I think about a lot. What do you think about marriage? Are you married? Will you ever get married? Has this book made you kind of rethink what marriage could be? Or anything else that you're wondering about what I said, what I didn't say, anything like that? I would love to know more thoughts. So yeah, thanks for hanging out.